So for this episode of Observing Fullerton podcast, we have Dr. Cynthia Olivo with us, the new Fullerton College president. Dr. Olivo, thank you so much for being on the podcast today with us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm happy about this.
First of all, Observing Fullerton and Fullerton Observer overall really wants to congratulate you on being the president of Fullerton College. I think we're so excited to finally have a female president. Yeah. We've been waiting for years.
That's so great. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm also happy to be here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that you are the first and one of the best ones that we have, and the door stays open for any more female presidents to follow after that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So how has first week of school been? I mean, it's been a long time since we've been in person like this before.
You know, it's been incredible. I've been able to walk around campus and see students and just enjoy watching students as they're taking in like Starbucks and you know, just having a nice time being in person, and yeah, it's been awesome.
Wow,
it's been
I'm
a good
glad.
First week.
So let's talk a little bit about, you know, your educational journey, because as somebody who loves higher education, I'm always interested in other people and how they got there. So you went to Cal State University San Bernardino, to then Claremont Graduate College.
Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit about what motivated you to pursue higher education?
Yeah, you know, I was raised by this amazing, extraordinary single mom who wanted to make sure that myself and my 3 younger sisters had options available to us as women. And so when I graduated high school, she really did not give me a choice. I had to go directly to university.
That's amazing.
And her EOP and S counselor, Miss Winnie, also a very strong woman, she helped my mom understand what I needed to do to go to college. And the closest CSU to my town was San Bernardino. And so the other was UC Riverside. But honestly, for me, I loved San Bernardino because I saw the beautiful mountains that it's by. It's nestled right up against this beautiful mountain range. And I just really felt like it was a nice place and a good spot for me. And it was really extraordinary. I lived there for 18 years. I was a student for 5 years and an employee at the university, a staff member and an administrator for 13 years.
Wow, that is incredible. So you made the place of your education your home.
Yes.
So what did you study there at Cal State?
Yeah, I originally started as an international business major, and then I changed my major to psychology after I took my first general education psychology course. I was just always so interested in people and how we formulate our thoughts, our opinions, how we navigate the world. And psychology was interesting for me. So I stuck with that. And then I was a very involved student leader, a lot like yourself, you know, very, very involved. And I remember the Associate Vice President of Student Affairs, he actually offered me my first career position. He said, you know, would you like to lead Greek life and be the coordinator, or would you like to be the coordinator of housing and residential life? And I selected housing and residential life because I thought it would be interesting for me to you know, be responsible for 7 residence halls and all the staff and all the student life and the student conduct, everything related to how students were living in this area, hundreds of students. So it was awesome, and it also helped me understand that I wanted to pursue counseling. So I got a master's in counseling and guidance, and then I switched over to become a college recruitment and admissions counselor because I wanted to help other students access higher education. I realized that not everybody had equal access to higher ed, and I wanted to help be a part of the solution so that I could kick that door open to higher education for people who had been left out in the past.
Right. So you've worked in pretty much so many different arenas: housing, counseling, recruitment, and I feel like that's such a great segue into my next question is like, what motivated you to kind of pursue this position?
Yeah. Well, you know, as I was coming up through my doctoral program at Claremont Graduate University. I selected that program because there was an emphasis in urban education, social justice issues. Okay. So to me, I pursued this presidency because it just aligns with my passion and my admiration for the community college system, right? It just provides that avenue for people to access higher education with, faculty and staff who really care at a very affordable cost and a lot of support. And I found that here at Fullerton College, it has an amazing, history, as well as people who are really, really excited about this college. So
certainly,
that's why I pursued it, because it has a great reputation.
Yeah, it does. And Fullerton College is a team who has been, brought up in this space. Yeah. The focus on community and education and involvement is so heavily emphasized here. Yeah. So I think that's just one of the amazing aspects of Fullerton College. And I think with your experience, it's just such a great match, as you said earlier. Yeah. So the actual process of selecting a new president for the Fullerton College has been very long. It's been going on for the past more than a year. How was that process for you? Because I assume it was difficult to get through some of those hurdles after you saw how long it had already been that we were looking.
I actually came to this college after serving as an assistant superintendent vice president of student services for around 7 years. And prior to that, I was associate vice president and dean of counseling, so a total of almost 15 years at my previous place. So I understand it was a long process here, but I wasn't a part of the first cycle. Right. I applied in the second cycle. Right. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, because I believe it was like the first one, nobody got selected, if I remember correctly. Okay. And the second one, it was, I don't remember the exact timeline of the cycles. Yeah. So when did you apply first?
I applied the second time I saw it advertised.
Okay.
Yeah. And by that time, it was people in the system, my colleagues who were at other colleges, really encouraged me to look at Fullerton College. And they pointed out that the student demographics were very similar to the institution where I was working. Right. And I didn't know that. I was very much set on staying in the Los Angeles area. Right. And so when I saw that the student demographics were very similar and the college culture was very similar, there was a lot of sense of college pride. A lot of alumni who regard and revere the college and respect it, and community members who appreciate it and support it, That's what I found was similar, and I was excited about that.
Well, I'm glad that our reputation, it convinced you to come here. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your experience at Pasadena City College. You were there for 15 years. So how did that experience, how did that shape your understanding of the role community college specifically play in gaining access to higher education?
Yeah, there I really was able to be the leader who helped the college put programs in place that aligned with student needs. Okay. And, prior to my time at the college, it was pretty standard. Whatever the state paid for is what the college did. But one of the first programs I added during a time period that the rest of the colleges weren't, I added a Veterans Resource Center. Wow. And this is when a lot of U.S. vets were returning from the war, and they had tremendous needs. I had a counselor who had a specialty in understanding how to serve vets, so I just had her be the focal point of all veterans. When they came to the college, they would see her. And then I had an adjunct who was able to teach a class called Boots to Books. So it was just taking an existing class and making it a theme of serving veterans. So it's looking at existing resources and just utilizing those resources in a different way. Right. The next program I implemented and was able to champion was for undocumented students. Mm-hmm. The college had never had that before, so we created a Save Zone Coalition. Mm-hmm. And then, it just continued to grow from there. People saw me as, oh, there's the person we should go to when we know what students need, but the college doesn't have it yet. Mm-hmm. So another example is tripling the size of our Ujima program, which is equivalent to the Urooj program at Fullerton College. Mm-hmm. So, at one point it only served 30 students, and then I made it so we could serve 100 or 150 wow. students. And, then creating an association for Latino faculty, staff, and students is mm-hmm. the one that was present, just wasn't making it so classified staff felt comfortable being involved. So mm-hmm. I just really tried to ensure the college was doing what it needed to do to be responsive to the needs of the people there, the right. students and the employees. Mm-hmm. And then I'll tell you, one of the most exciting parts was, I remember thinking, like, we work really hard and I think we have pretty good student outcomes. Mm-hmm. And I wondered why we were not a part of this program called the Aspen Prize for Community College Excellence, right? It's nationally regarded as like the Oscars of community colleges. Mm-hmm. And so I asked our lobbyist company, our advocacy firm, if they could set up a meeting and I could ask the people at Aspen, what does it take? And I had the meeting. I found out one of their criteria was you have to demonstrate that you're increasing student success for mm-hmm. historically underrepresented minority groups mm-hmm. for 3 years in a row. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, there's a good goal to have, right? So I was able to get the college to rally around meeting that goal. Mm-hmm. And so we increased our success rates for African American, Latino, Pacific Islander students. We showed increases in student success, and in the matter of 3 years we were able to make it to top 150, and from there we made it to top 10 in the nation. Wow. 3 times in a row, 3 competitions in a row.
That's impressive.
That's over the course of 7 years. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm really happy that I was able to do that and just provide the college with some aspirational goals mm-hmm. towards realizing racial equity and social justice. Mm-hmm. It really is what I believe in, and a competition like that makes it fun because right. a lot of times people get caught up in their own feelings about those topics, right? People are people, and sometimes politics and people don't mix. Mm-hmm. And this was able to help it become something like we aspire to do better for our students. And mm-hmm. So that's a little bit about my background.
That is amazing. Mm-hmm. What I am hearing as you're explaining all of this, that you see needs and you just work hard to fulfill them and whatever that takes. Yes. You're that kind of a person, and yes. I think that's exactly what we need at this point at Fullerton College. So after hearing you talk about all of that and your experience at Pasadena City College, I'm just so glad that we have you here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And one cool thing that I saw when I looked you up is that there was this LA Times article mm-hmm. Which was talking about decreasing enrollment at community colleges, and you were quoted as one of the people who has provided basic needs, basic resources for students, and that actually led to an increase of enrollment by about 5,000 students between 2 semesters last year. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, yeah. So I was able to centralize all of the services that students could access to meet their basic needs. Mm-hmm. For example, having emergency aid available for students who are facing some unexpected emergency. Mm-hmm. Let's say your tire blows out and you need money to fix it. Mm-hmm. If a student doesn't have access to the funds to take care of that, it could really derail their whole college semester, right? So I was able to create a rapid response emergency aid. Mm-hmm. And then we had a partnership with a local community-based org that helped us place students who were experiencing housing insecurities. And then we also were able to work with the county to have someone to help our students sign up for Obamacare, Medi-Cal, also food stamps, but I was able to centralize all of those services to one center, and the mascot there was called Lancers, so we just named it the Lancer Care Center, right? And so that really did make a difference. Also in our Dreamer Center, we had a community-based organization that provided an immigration attorney, that would meet with students weekly. And I placed that attorney in the Lancer Care Center because sometimes access to legal assistance is really a basic need, right? So we had the attorney in there, and we also had clothing, brand new clothing, because sometimes when students are navigating housing insecurities, they need clothing, laundry detergent, money for laundry, things like that. Also working within the school itself to work with programs like cosmetology for free haircuts. We had a dental hygiene program, so we did free dental teeth cleaning, So just making sure students had easy access. And actually, this came from working closely with my student leaders at that particular college. They said, Dr. Olivo, we have so many resources that you and the team here have helped to create, but it's located all over the place, and it's really hard for us to remember where to go for what. So centralizing it to one department, it was very beneficial. And we utilize services like text messages and something we called nudging, so that we could nudge students when we saw that they needed support. Just to remind students, we had emergency aid, immigration attorneys. All of these services were free and easy to access. So it made a difference, Also making sure all the households in that district knew about these services. I led sending a postcard out to all households that listed all the free items that we had available to support students. And what I think that shows the public is we care about you. We know this is a hard time that we're all going through in the pandemic and this, era of racial reckoning. And we have services available for you. We care about you. We want you to come to school, and we'll do everything we can to help you. So I think that message needs to be conveyed as well. And it helped in that area. So I hope that we can do some similar things here. I think what we also have going for us here at Fullerton College is we have programs that align with job availability that lead to high living wages. Like, I love the drone program. I can't wait to learn more and figure out a way to get that information out to the public about coming here and earning a certificate in our drone program, and then getting out there and becoming employed. I think that's the icing on the cake that Fullerton College has, and I can't wait to get out there and make sure the public knows. And I feel like we're going to become top 10 in the nation. That's where Fullerton College is positioned. I can feel it as I'm learning more and more, here on my 15th day at the college. I feel really good about us.
I think we're just getting you a little too early because we really wanted to get to know you more and kind of get an interview with you when you were starting out, so we can hopefully do a follow-up later and see how it went. And you're right, I think as a former student here, there are so many resources that we have, but it's kind of the same issue that it's all scattered. And it's not always communicated well how much we have. So students can go their entire time here not knowing they could have gotten free textbooks, not knowing they could have gotten free food, not knowing all of these things. So it really takes a go-getter mindset, which even to cultivate that is something you do learn in college. I think what you have done at PCC, if you can do the same thing here, that would be incredible.
Yes.
So keeping on the line of that, we've been in the pandemic for so long, I can't remember when it started. Our college experiences have just been engulfed by this, Zoom screens and digital stuff. And coming back into the community is something that's really difficult. So what plans do you kind of have to transition Fullerton College back in person out of the pandemic,
Yeah, I believe it's important to embrace a new way of doing our work and a new way to create a college experience. That new way, I believe, is a little bit of both. It's a hybrid approach so that we have in-person connection building and in-person learning experiences, in-person co-curricular activities, but also easy to access online services so that you get what you need from any office that's critical for your success, right? Whether it's getting your transcript, accessing your financial aid, excuse me, things like that. So in my previous experience, I created some really engaging in-person college-wide activities that happened on the same day of every month, so that all the community would know, if you go on the last Thursday of the month, there's the fair, the resource fair with music and food and drinks, boba tea, things like that. So really trying to make it so the community understands when the in-person community engagement happens so that people look forward to getting back together in person, right? And then also creating things like an integrated one-stop virtual support center.
Yes.
So that is always available, and that's the place students can go to online when they need help. And that virtual support team could be a part of the solution finders for the students. And then having the same for in-person, making sure all critical offices stagger their staff so that the office is always open, even if the staff are flexing and doing some work from home combination, right? So those are the kinds of things that I look forward to exploring here at Fullerton College. Where I came from, it was simply that all employees worked their full time in person. Even if we were providing the service to the students online, it was still from your office at your desk. So the variables are a little different here, but I kind of like, the ability to innovate from a different perspective. I also learn from my family members. I'm from a very large family. I have 10 aunts and uncles and then 100 and something cousins. And some of my cousins have gone to online universities and finished their degree programs and are very successful teachers and counselors. And so I learn from their experiences. There are some people who do need the flexibility and ease of access of online.
Right.
So I'm constantly having to remind myself I'm an extroverted person who thrives from in-person interactions. I love being around people. It's where I draw my energy from. But I have to remember not everyone is in that mode, and also their lives may not be situated so that they can have that, right?
It's about looking at all these different kinds of needs again, and then
it's
filling
where
those.
my counseling training and background comes in handy, right? The primary rule of thumb for a counselor is, have you placed yourself in the other person's shoes to see from their perspective? So I'm constantly doing that.
Right. And I'm glad. I mean, there's so much to innovate. There's so much. I think the entire world is figuring out how do you even get back.
Yes.
So Fullerton College is just one part of that.
Yeah. And if I could add, there was this really critical YouTube class that I participated in during the pandemic. It was offered by Dr. J. Luke Wood.
Okay.
He's this expert on men of color, especially our Black and Latino men. And he hosted this online course called Black Minds Matter. And he had Dr. Gloria Ladson-Billings as one of his guest speakers. And this one quote she said is, "Please do not go back to normal. Normal is where the problem was," right? Before the pandemic, when we were doing it the way we were doing it, we weren't serving our Black and Latino students especially, right? And whomever else in your community, you know, whatever community it is, there were some communities who were not being served well.
Yeah.
So her challenge to all of us as educators is to figure out what we should be leaving behind and what we should embrace as we go forward from this part of the pandemic. That pandemics are really this kind of opportunity to reset. And that, for me, that was a challenge. Like, yes, she's asking us to figure out, what do we take with us? So what I choose to take with us is high engagement, service, community building, activities that are not like the past where it was kind of rigid and scary for students, right? And I choose to take with us, you know, the access that community college provides, but I want to leave behind anything that doesn't align with what our most vulnerable students experienced before the pandemic.
Right.
And that's always good to get a college community to think about and figure out together what we can do to make things better.
Yes, especially because, you know, the pandemic really shed light on all of the issues that we had.
Yes.
So you're right, it really is an opportunity for us to reset and think about all the different needs that we're not meeting. And I really like to add the needs of disabled students.
Yes.
Because I didn't realize how big of an issue this was until I was with somebody who had a stroller for their puppy. But we had to constantly reroute ourselves to walk around in Fullerton, not at Fullerton College, but I didn't realize how big of an issue it was. So that got me thinking, in every arena of life, like, how difficult must it be for disabled students to come to school and participate in class and activities and all of that. So
Very good. Yes.
Another thing to think about.
Yeah.
Let's get into some more fun questions.
Okay.
I love books, so I always like asking people for book recommendations.
Great.
So as somebody who's been in higher education for, you know, a better part of your life, you know, what kind of books recommendations do you have for students?
Yeah. Well, I would say, you know, I constantly am trying to read books that help nurture my soul and spirit. So for me, reading does that. And I'd say books like The Four Agreements, that's very helpful. You know, be clear with your word and stay true to your word. I think that is a good book recommendation. Also, I would say I'm in a book club and we read fun books, like novels.
Right.
So like my book club, the last book we read was called The Ballad of Love and Glory. And it just so happens that it was written by an alumni of PCC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she wrote this book called Over a Thousand Mountains, something like that. And so she's amazing. Her name is escaping me right now. Oh, her name is Reina Grande.
Reina Grande.
Reina Grande. Yeah, and then here I actually introduced a book written by a Fullerton College alumni.
Oh, wow.
At my convocation, the first big event that launched this academic, you know, spring semester. And it's called Illegally Yours. It is a memoir novel, and he's so funny. He was one of the writers of the CW show Jane the Virgin, and he's just, you know, hilarious, and also his story is riveting. He was an undocumented student. And so, you know how people who go through painful experiences often use humor to tell the story, and they entertain as they're also delivering this very, you know, this message with humanity, right? And that's this book. So I would recommend a book like that. And if any student wants a book, I can give them one. I was able to support Rafael as a Fullerton College alum by purchasing some books. So yeah, I would make that available. I would say leadership books are important too, and some leaders that I love and that also helped nurture my soul and spirit. Terioso, Dr. Terioso, she has a book. It's more academic, but still, she talks about looking at students through a community cultural wealth lens.
Wow.
And that's important to me, always to see students and the assets they bring to the table. Right. And not utilize like this traditional deficit-minded lens. So I'd say students should be familiar with that so that you could also do that. A lot of students are maybe like I was the first person in my family to go to college, so sometimes I doubted myself when I was an undergrad. And Terioso introduces this model of, let's think about all the assets we bring to the table and always remind yourself of that. And it helps to, just make you more confident.
Right, right. Those are some fantastic book recommendations. Thank you so much. I actually saw the Illegally Yours books. I was walking in.
Yes, yeah.
So I love that you're supporting Fullerton College alumni in this manner, and you have those available. It says take one for free.
Yes.
So my last question before I let you go is, what are some of your favorite study tips? Because we just finished week 1 at Fullerton College. What are some of your favorite study tips to start the semester off strong so you're not stressing at midterms and finals?
For me, the best study tip is to always find a group of people to study with. I got through my master's program in that way, and also my PhD program. I just found people to always work with, whether it was sharing notes, dividing up chapters and doing summaries, sharing those summaries, getting together when major papers were due. I will say by the time I pursued a PhD, I knew that about myself, that I love to be around people and to just feel the camaraderie with a group of working towards that same goal. And I took 7 people with me to an info session for the Claremont Graduate University PhD program. I remember it was Lorena, Olivia, Diana, Zena, and me.
Wow.
And I was like, come on, let's apply. And only another person from the group ended up applying and getting in. And at least, I had one person who we would commute together. And, then we could support one another through that process. So I would say I would recommend to students to group up. And maybe that looks different for this generation. It could be that you're just like on Zoom or, virtually together. I know one of my younger friends, she is in a doctoral program and they Zoom together. They're not physically together, but they're on Zoom, and then they can ask each other questions. And so I would say that's a good study tip, is to share your notes, get notes from others, and really support each other through the process.
That's such an incredible tip. I always hear when I ask for tips, they'll say something like, oh, well, make sure you're going to all your classes. And I'm like, what? But I mean, that is actually something so incredibly useful, using groups.
In my master's program, I will say I'm the friend that was like, one person would always show up super late and then not give us their notes for their part of the chapter. And I'm the friend that would be like, I'll talk to her and let her know how disappointed we are and how next time she needs to follow through. I was the person, and I would have that difficult conversation and she'd be upset, and then I'd be like, we're giving you our notes for the chapter summaries. We expect the same in return, so sometimes the leadership is hard, but it carries over into my study groups,
Right. I mean, that's incredible, and that leadership, those leadership qualities are so unique and rare. So I'm glad that somebody who has them is sitting in this position right now. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.